Math and Middle School Science, Part 1, Formulas. One of the difficult parts of middle school science can be all of the different formulas you have to deal with. This video is meant to clear up any confusion you might have about using these formulas. It's not as difficult as it might seem because as long as you understand the basic math, it doesn't matter what the formula looks like. As an example, these two formulas look very different, but the math used to solve them is very much the same. And that is the key concept I want you to take away from this video. That even though the formulas that you see can be very different, the math is probably actually exactly the same. And it makes things so much easier if you just understand the math. So, for instance, let's take a look at this formula, where force equals mass times acceleration, or F equals m times a. Now, you might not have studied this yet, and it really doesn't matter what the units are or what the letters are. We're trying to understand the math. So, if we were trying to find force, or F, it's pretty much straightforward. We just multiply mass times acceleration, or m times a. But what if we needed to find the mass? Well, since we're finding the mass, in the equation we want to have m, or mass, all by itself. So we look to see what's happening to m in the equation. We see that m is being multiplied by a. So the next step is to undo or reverse that process. So how do we undo being multiplied by a? Well, we do the opposite of that, and that is to divide by a. When we look at this and we want to reverse what's happening to m and divide by a, we do this. I'm going to write it as a fraction. On the right side, we're going to divide by a. But since it's an equation needs to be equal. Equations need to be equal. That's the meaning of an equation. So if we do one thing to one side, we do the same thing to the other side. So since I divided by a on the right side, I need to divide by a on the left side, right? To make things fair or equal. It's like my friend that has two dogs. If he gives one dog a treat, you know what? To be fair, he has to give the other dog a treat. So here, we're going to do the same thing to both sides. We have to make both sides equal. Now let's work the math. Hopefully, from your studies of fractions years ago, you should understand, hopefully, that on the right side, the a's cancel. The a on top cancels the a on bottom. And so we have m all by itself. And we have a new equation, F over A equals m. And so we have a different equation to solve for mass. Let's put some numbers into it. Let's say the force is 10, and that equals mass times the acceleration of 2. The letters can be different. It could be a completely different formula, but the functions are the same. The way we work it is the same. So we're trying to find m. We look at it, what's happening to m? Well, it's being multiplied by 2. We're going to undo that. We're going to undo it by doing the opposite and divide by 2. Since it's an equation, it needs to be equal, so we're going to do the left side the same, and we're going to divide the left side by 2. On the right side, the 2's cancel out, and we have m by itself, and now we have our solution, that 10 divided by 2 equals m, and so m equals 5. Alright, moving forward, the same thing will work if we're trying to find acceleration, right? If we're trying to find acceleration, we look at what is happening to a for acceleration. What's happening to a? It's being multiplied by m, so we're going to divide by m. We have to do the same thing to the left side because it's an equation. On the right side, the m's cancel out, So we have A all by itself, and we have a new formula, F over M equals A. So here you see that we started with this formula, and we ended up with not one formula, but 3 formulas. But they're all based on the same one. You don't have to memorize all 3. You just need to know how to do the math of just this one. If you know the math, the other 2 doesn't even matter. You know how to work this formula. Let's take a look at another example. So here's a formula that looks a little bit different. This is speed equals distance divided by time, or S equals D divided by T. Now if we were looking for S, then that's easy. I take D and divide it by T. But what if we're looking for D, or distance? It's a little different, right? Well, we look at what is happening to D. I hope you understand that D is being divided by T, or time. To undo that, we have to do the opposite of divide. We're going to multiply. We're going to multiply by T. It's an equation, so we have to multiply by T on both sides to make it equal. Here I convert the T into fractions, and when we go through the math, the T's on the right side cancel out. We have D all by itself, and we end up with T times S equals D. And that's the basic math on how to do these formulas. If we put numbers to it, to give you an example, if the speed is 8 and it equals D divided by the time of 2, look at this math formula, we see that we're trying to figure out what is happening to D. It's being divided by 2, so we're going to multiply by 2 on both sides. The 2's cancel on the right. We have D all by itself, and we end up with 2 times 8 equals D, and our solution is D equals 16. Alright, so hopefully that was helpful. And again, even though the formulas look different and the letters are different, the math is the same.